This is a tutorial on using WPF panels in APL. The following script or function demonstrates the use of panels in WPF. In WPF, a window can only have a single element. To have more than one, you need a container. Panels are containers. In WPF, layout is determined by the container you use. An ideal container follows a few principles. Its elements, such as controls, should not be explicitly sized. They should not indicate their position with coordinates either. Layout containers share the available space among the children, and layout containers can be nested. So let's have a look at an example here. So the first thing we're going to do is set the code using system variable to be able to get at the WPF objects. In this case here we have to set system.windows in the WPF presentation framework DLL, and we're going to need system.windows.controls. Then we create a new window, then we show it. The window appears in the background. We're going to resize it so it appears right behind here. Then we're going to create a stack panel. The first thing we do, we create a stack panel and set it as the content of the window. Then we change its color red, as you can see here. And then we create 15 buttons. This is just for the sake of the example. We create 15 buttons, we add them to the form, and as you can see here, the buttons have been added, but they have no height. They're all buttons without any properties yet. Then we set their content to a string, the caption if you want. And if we look now, we see that we have 15 buttons that have been created. They stretch, they use the entire space. We haven't told them what to do. The default behavior is to stretch and to use all the space. Then we pick 15 colors at random. To do this, we need another namespace which contains the colors, and this one is System Windows in that DLL and System Windows Media. We need both of them. We pick 15 colors, we assign it to the background of the buttons. You can see the color has been changed. Then we set their height and their width. You see now their height and their width has been changed. And just for the sake of the example again, we will modify the minimum width of some of the buttons. So for example, B15 will have a minimum width bigger than B1. So let's do this, and you can see that all the buttons now have minimum width. And let's move the second one to the right. The second button has been moved to the right. Now let's move the entire panel to the right. As you can see here, the panel only occupies that space here. It doesn't use any more than that. The rest is part of the window, it's not part of the panel. Then we align it to the left. Same thing again. Everything has been moved to the left. Then we stretch it again, just as it was before. And then we align it at the bottom. Right now it's aligned at the top. As soon as I align it at the bottom, you see the panel has been moved to the bottom. Then we move it to the top again. Then we set its orientation to horizontal. And now all the buttons line up from left to right instead of top to bottom. And we can't see really here, but if I stretch the window, we can see that the buttons extend to the right. Now if we make the panel to use up the entire window by using stretch, you can see that now it's right in the middle and it uses up the entire window. This is what a stack panel is. It stacks up elements from top to bottom or from left to right. That's all it does. This is a stack panel. Next is a dock panel. First of all, we're going to get rid of all of the buttons that we have here. Then we're going to create a dock panel. The dock panel is in the same location as the wrap panel, so we don't need to set the quad using again. Then we add all the children. The way the dock panel works is to set things from left to right, but we can change this order if we want to. For example, here B1, B2, B3 and so on have all been aligned to the left. But we're going to change the 13th one to be aligned to the top. So let's move this window here so we can see better. And we set it to the top. As you can see, B13 has been moved to the top, B14 has been moved to the left of the remaining section. Now let's move 7 to the bottom. Let's bring the window into view and move the 7th button to the bottom. As you can see, B7 has been moved to the bottom, B8 is moved to the left of whatever's remaining, B9 and so on and so on. B13 is at the top still, B14 is on the left, and B15 occupies whatever remains. In this case, this section here. This is a little bit difficult to see, so we're going to do it again, but this time we're going to be using a stack panel instead of a button. It will be easier to see it. So first of all, let's remove the buttons. Create 15 new stack panels, change their colors as we did previously, and set their minimum height and width so they appear. Otherwise, since they have nothing in them, nothing is going to show up. Now we're going to ask for the 3rd, the 7th and the 11th to be docked on top, the 4th, 5th and 13th to be docked at the bottom, the 2nd, 10th and 12th to be docked to the right, and we're going to ask for the last child, the last element, not to fill the entire remaining space. So now let's do them one by one. Let's do the first one. The first one should be on the left. We haven't changed its default value. There it is. The second one, right here, is to the right. So let's make this window a little bit smaller. And we add it, appears to the right. The third one should be at the top. The 4th one should be at the bottom. The 5th one shall also be at the bottom. The 6th one hasn't changed, so it should be on the left. The 7th one should be on the top. The 8th one should be on the left. The 9th one also. The 10th one on the right. The 11th on top. And the 12th to the right. You can of course change them afterwards. I could change any one of those panels and change it to a different place if I wanted to. For example, if I change the 5th panel and move it to the right, this is what happens. The 5th, which was at the bottom, has been moved to the right. And we add the remaining elements, the 13th, 14th and 15th panels. So that's it. So this is what a dock panel looks like. For the next example, we're going to remove all the elements here. The next example will be about wrapping panel. Now that we've removed all the elements in it, let's create a new wrap panel which is in the same location as the other panels, so we don't have to change quad using. And we're going to set its color red. We're going to add all the buttons that we had previously. And if you see now, they've been added one after the other. And they wrap to the next line when there's not enough room for them. If I resize the form, you can see that the buttons move automatically without any code being involved here. Now if we set the panel to be centered, you can see this white space around it. And this white space changes as needed. If we change the orientation of the panel and set it vertical, you can see now that all the buttons are aligned top to bottom, and that they are redisplayed as necessary. Here's another example of a wrap panel using XAML. This time what we're going to do is we're going to take an exact copy of this window here and create a XAML code for it. The way we do that, we use the save function in the XAML writer namespace, which is in System Windows Markup. If we look at the XAML code now, we can see that this is the XAML code that will reproduce the window that we had there. This reproduces the window with its location, its width, its height, the wrap panel inside it, and each one of the buttons as they were when we asked to save the form. So let's recreate this window using the XAML code that we had there. Now we have a second window which is exactly on top of the first one, and we can see it by moving the second window which is on top. You can see now we have two identical copies, the original one and the new one we just made. Both behave as expected. We now close the windows, one after the other. And for a final example, here's a variable that contains XAML. It contains a window, a title, width, height, top, and a wrap panel that contains 3 buttons and 3 text boxes. If we run this into the load XAML function, which is a utility function, and show it, we now have a window that contains the 3 buttons and the 3 text boxes, which can be resized. As you can see, it behaves exactly as predicted. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this. Goodbye.